Hey everyone, and welcome back to another Etheria restart video. So in today's video, guys, I wanted to talk about the things that I want or am hoping to see in the balance patch that's going to come out here any day, right? We had that recent hyper talk, and everything there I think was awesome. They had a lot of great things. They had roadmaps for the events that were going to, basically filter in each month. A lot of them have lattice opportunities, so I think the lattice increase is going to be there. They got a cool new system with Awakening for SRs, so they, I think, are going to be relevant again, which is great because it just gives you more shakeups to the meta, right? Easier ways for the shells, for RNG on your matrices, more passive opportunities to, reduce on the need for, like reconfig chips. So, like, all of it's great. But if your format still stinks, then it's still kind of the same frustrations that we have where it's just not a fun time to play PvP, which is what the game is supposed to be focused on. So I wanted to give, my 2 cents on what I'm really hoping to see out of this balance patch. And if they don't do it, I'm going to be a little skeptical. So what they tend to do is buffs two heroes. Now, I think this is always tough, right? I don't think they have an easy task at hand. But I will honestly say, I think most of the heroes are fine. Like the skill kits are really cool. I think there's a lot of variants that you can have on your characters if everything else kind of figured itself out. And what I mean by that is I think matrix bonuses are an issue, and I think shells are the main issue over characters themselves, right? But I really don't want to see nerfs. I don't. I don't want to see nerfs to any characters. I just want to see buffs to characters and retweaking of shells. Um, I'm even hesitant to say that I want to see a nerf to shells or matrices. I just want buffs. Increase the value of other things instead of decreasing the value of other things because it could end up going sideways, right? We saw that with the Revelation shell, which at the time I think needed that nerf. The problem is they haven't nerfed anything else. So it's just like one thing got a nerf and everything else's balance just increased. So that was the problem. So there's only two characters that I think need a buff or a change. The first one is Navette. I think this was a huge swing and miss. I'd even say that this character is one of the worst characters in the game. Like, she is so bad, mainly because they built her around this passive and it just does nothing. So they like wasted an entire skill kit around a passive that just does not work. I think they went way too conservative with this, and it ended up screwing her. So they really need to go all in and change her multipliers here. Um, if they want to keep going with this route, if they want to keep this as is, the one way that they can make Navette relevant without breaking her, with the defense ignores and all those things, is changing the block to wound. If they change this to a 2-turn AoE wound, that would be absolutely amazing. I think she would be a top tier crowd control unit with the current state of the meta, right? It's a lot of healing, it's a lot of amber, stuff like that. And those are two kind of unique debuffs, Petrify and Wound. You don't see them in a lot of characters, especially AoE. And it would be the first AoE wound on a non-LD character. So that's what I think she needs is they need to either, ramp this back up so she actually is a viable threat for a CC damage dealer, or just change this to a 2-turn wound. So that's the first one. And then the next character in the SSRs, I think, is Batsby. I think if they just tweak this up to 15%, he would be pretty relevant. I think he's already good. The thing is people haven't invested in damage dealers because it's not a cleave kind of setup, right? It's a turn 2 bruiser kind of meta, and characters like Batsby tend to not do great in metas like that. but he is a huge, just single hit unit with damage multipliers here. So if they tweak that, I think he would be a little bit more viable. He has okay speed, and he's got like some cool turn meter push where he can possibly take 2 turns really quickly in a row. But yeah, I think that would be pretty relevant. Now, I did have some SRs that I thought could use some tweaks, but with this awakening system coming out, I kind of want to just sit by and see what would happen there. But if those 2 characters got buffed, I would be absolutely fine. I hope they don't nerf anybody, unless if they nerf characters, they give us a reset event. But I don't think that's happening. All right. Now, when it comes to shells, this is where the things really have gone off the rails, right? Is there's so many good turn 2 shells or bruiser shells, and all of the other shells that come with the damage dealers just aren't enough. They really aren't. So the first thing I would change, and also for like crowd control, the first thing I would change here is Dark Moon. I would have this effect accuracy increased by 100%. I would. And I would do it for 2 turns. Now, the reason why I would do it for 2 turns is this is not a Codex of Magic, right? You don't get to use the same skill twice in a row. So you have to, like, on most of your crowd control heroes, they'll have like that one big, CC turn. And then outside of that, it's really nothing else. But the other reason why I kind of like this shell, if they increase the effect accuracy to 100%, and have it last for 2 turns, is a lot of damage dealers. Characters like Rosa, Shiada, Batsby, Yelly, they have good debuffs in their skill kits. The problem is you're never building them with effect accuracy. So if they can have a huge boost to their effect accuracy, along with the damage that comes from Dark Moon, which does good damage, I think this could kind of shake things up. The other issue is you have very good turn 2 shells that give boosts if they resist something. So putting Dark Moons on damage dealers, I think kind of have a way of negating that. It's the same thing with your crowd controllers as well, is there's a lot of times that the effect res on those characters with like a Reaper Steps just throws everything out of whack. It feels OP, but it's because you don't have enough effect accuracy boosters on your team to make it relevant. So I think if they did that, Dark Moon could really shake up some things in the meta. Count is another one that I think needs a major tweak. The first one is Count needs to have Harvest as a matrix here. Harvest is one of the best kind of matrix bonuses that you can have like on a huge, just one-hit nuke character. So putting a Count on, a Messiah, or putting a Count on a Batsby, if they have the ability to do Harvest, I think would make a world of difference. This Life Leech does absolutely nothing. It is so bad. The amount of life gain that you get from this is like 1,000 HP or something whenever you're attacking into a Bloodbath character. So this needs to change from a 1,200, boost to attack and take away the Life Leech shell ability and have it be something cool like ignore passives for 1 turn. I think that would make a huge difference too, as you're getting around like some of the counter attacking that takes place with the green SR character. Same thing with like Holden, stuff like that, where it's very small, but it does make a difference. You can get around Veronica, you can get around Tiamat. Like, it's a cool little tweak where it makes this shell completely relevant now instead of irrelevant with just a 1,200 attack boost. That's all that shell is doing. And you also don't have any kind of defense ignore in here either. So Count and Dark Moon are certainly the biggest tweaks that need to be made. I think Sword 7 also needs a change as well. Like this whole controlled enemies, I don't like if this could be static. This is also another shell that does not have harvest on it. Um, so that needs to be tweaked as well. But if this was like a static negative or a debuff where if the enemy was controlled, then it puts like a 50% increased damage on them. Even if the control effect is removed, it's still on there, right? It's like an additional debuff. It's like a vulnerable with just this shell. Now, the thing is, I think if you wanted to have that debuff be able to be cleansed, it would make it a little more balanced and not as overpowered. But if it was a 2-turn controlled vulnerability debuff where it increases the damage taken by 50%, this would be an awesome shell. Like, it would be a great shell for people to go in and use on certain nukers for a CC kind of setup. Like, this would be an amazing shell on someone like Yvette or Navette if they ended up changing her a little bit, where she could do some more damage. But until then, I really don't think that is going to take place. Now, I think Law of Silence and White Fang could also use some tweaks. The reason why I'm not really mentioning White Fang too much is the fact that it's the first shell, like first attack shell that you get, which is fine. Like, I don't want this to be a thing where like everything needs to be buffed. Like, you can have your beginner mythic shells and then develop into better ones, which is why I think I focused more on Sword 7 and Count, because those two are like the late game shells for damage dealers. And it's just, they're so bad, there's no reason to use them, which is nuts. Like, you're more so using Jackal Guard, you're more so using Dark Moon on damage dealers, and of course Revelation if they have multi-hits. But White Fang, could use a little bit of a boost. I don't know if they want to put the crit damage up to like 20% or something like that, because I really don't even think it would still make it that relevant. I really don't even think people would still use White Fang. But Law of Silence, an easy one is to make this unremovable. But if you do that, I think you end up making, like turn 2 Messiahs or turn 2 Liliums just like way, way more toxic for turn 2 than anything else. So I wouldn't recommend that. But those are the minor tweaks that I'd like to see to those shells. It's those 3 shells kind of just being buffed to make damage dealers a little more relevant and also a little bit of help to CC. Now, when it comes to the matrices, this is the thing that I think needs changed the most. You have an extremely overpowered matrix in Bloodbath, right? And there's been nothing to counter it at all. So Harvest is a defense ignore set, but I think what they need to do is just completely remove the whole, like, if the target's HP is above 50%, ignore 30% of their defense. It should always be ignore 30% defense. And if they wanted to increase this to 12, I'd be fine with that. Like, if Harvest gets a 30% defense ignore all the time, outside of the 50% threshold, but you have to bump it up to 12 matrices, I'd be fine with that. And then if they want to keep the 8 where the effect only works above 50% HP, it would still be relevant in like PvE speedruns, right? But yeah, I think this just needs to be a flat 30% defense ignore. The other thing that they could do if they want to keep it at 8 is just remove the 10% attack, so it's a little more balanced. But this is the first thing that needs to happen. And then the second one that needs to be changed is momentum. So this needing 6 different debuffs is nuts. I think they need to bump this up to 12%. And if they do, that means you get 3 debuffs on a character and you're smacking for 36% more damage. It's still not super easy to do that, I don't think, with all of the cleansing, with all of the turn meter push and effect resistance stuff going on with Reaper steps and things like that, yeah, I think that is absolutely fine. 2 more. First one is Time Weave. I think this needs a major boost. I think the effect accuracy increase needs to go to 40%. I really do. Because the trade-off here is if you have, and it's okay if at 6% it's 20 effect accuracy, but at 12 matrix bonus, it needs to go up to 40. I think there should be some static increases of the actual flat stats that the matrix gives you instead of just the effect. So you could do that like on all of these, actually. Same thing with like bulwark and stuff like that. If they wanted to give, more HP or something, like 10% HP on 4 matrices and then 15% on, the 8. I think they should do that. But Time Weave needs it drastically. So if you have 40% effect accuracy for a 12 matrix boost, you have to remember you're giving up speed there. If you also want to include like the specialized cores as well. If you want to do a 12 and 12 set with speed and Time Weave, that's still a possibility. But increasing the effect accuracy up to 40%, I think makes Time Weave a bit more of a relevant PvP set. But yeah, the effect accuracy for 18%, it's just way too low. And on top of that, it would drastically help PvE players, especially new players trying to get into the game. So I think Time Weave would be quite good if they increase it to 40%. And then the last thing is Battle Will. Battle Will has been just so bad. This 20% chance to launch a follow-up attack is terrible. It needs to be 50%, and even then, it probably wouldn't be used, but it would make it kind of like interesting, right? And on top of that, I think if they increase the attack up to like 20%, this would also be a good change. So 20% boost to the attack percentage and then increase this to 50%, just to kind of shake things up. So those are the main things that I'm looking for. I'd like to see a little boost to effect accuracy stuff, as well as some changes to damage dealing sets. I think they're minor tweaks, right? I really do. Especially if you remove the attack percentage or if you turn this into a 12-piece set. I think you can make Harvest still like really good, but not overpowered. And then same thing with Momentum, like having this just scale up to with just 3 debuffs instead of 6 would go a long way for Cleave. And then the Time Weave and Battle Will. And like I said, like the shells and the matrices are the main things. Minor tweaks to animuses. Please don't nerf stuff. I think the characters themselves are good. They just have an issue with some of the like crazy interactions that the game has, mainly with Bloodbath and then, of course, with Amber. There's just not enough wound in the game to make this good. I really hate to try and nerf this. I think if they just bring in more counters to it, that would be a better option. So that's what I got for you guys today. I know a lot of people are looking forward to the balance patch, even players that are turn 2 players. So fingers crossed that they do a good job, and we'll be reporting back as soon as we see what the changes are going to be. All right. Appreciate you guys watching. Catch you on the next one. See ya.